Internet2 and CAIDA, with support from the National Science Foundation, have built a tool to help network operators plan their RPKI-ROAs. This is an experimental service. Users should not solely rely on its output as the final authority for required ROAs. If you have comments or questions or suggestions, please contact Steve Wallace at ssw@internet2.edu. Over the last few years, assisting a variety of organizations in planning their ROAs, we've discovered that while most network operators require a single or a simple ROA per IP network, a sizable number require more ROAs or more complex ROAs. Importantly, most network operators benefit from assistance to determine if their ROA needs are simple or complex. To see the regional Internet Registry reassignments of the address space, and also to look at the Internet Routing Registry route objects and what routes they suggest. The ROA Planner collects current and past network announcements via RIPE-STAT and route views. It collects IRR route objects and RIR assignments. Then it calculates the ROAs required to cover all of these as though they are potentially valid routing announcements. The user can deselect any of these data, for example, ignoring routing announcements over a year ago, and the ROA Planner will update the needed ROAs. The URL for the ROA Planner is roa-planner.internet2.edu. This is the home page for the ROA Planner. You can enter an IP prefix. We'll enter 129.79.0.0/16. And it brings up some information about that prefix. In the table below, it shows us the registry information. So this /16 has a single entry from Aaron for its registry. That's the top row. You can click on the link for the point of contacts, and you get a list of the technical contacts for this resource at Aaron. The next row shows you routing history for this prefix. It shows it's 0 days old, which means this is a route that RIPE is currently seeing. It shows you the route and the origin AS. In this case, it's 87. And that if you took the existing ROA information, that would be valid. Next row shows you Internet Registry information. In this case, it's a route object within Aaron's IRR. It's 109 days old, so somebody made this 109 days ago. It also shows an origin AS of 87, and if this were a route, it would also be considered valid given current ROA information. The next row is a route object from RADB. It's about 2 years old. Again, it shows the same origin AS. And then below these, the next couple rows show a couple of other routes, more specific routes, that are seen currently. So again, these routes are coming from RIPE-STAT. They're 0 days old, so these are current routes. So these are all valid. So this network has all the ROAs it needs. And if you look up here, these tabs, the tab we're looking at right now is the ROA planning information. And then this report, if ROAs are needed, presents them in two different formats. It presents multi-prefix ROAs and single prefix ROAs. But in the case of this IP network, it has all the ROAs it needs. So let's give you another example. So I'm going to put in Internet2's IPv6 allocation. We have a /32. Going to hit the Analyze button. And brings up a lot of information. Internet2 reallocates much of this space to other organizations within the Internet2 community. So a lot of other organizations are using different bits and pieces of this address space. Remember, it goes and looks for routing registry information, current and historical routes, and IRR route objects for this prefix. And initially, it takes all that information and calculates the ROAs that would be required to cover all of those if those represented actual internet routes. And if you look at these tabs, if it's calculating the number of multi-prefix ROAs, it looks like there are 38 that would be required. We can take a look at those. Each row is a ROA, and you'll notice that some of them, for example, for AS4557, that row would require all of these prefixes when you establish it. So here are all the rows that it's saying are required for all the planning information that's been selected. Well, we'll look at some of this, and some of this information we probably don't want to include in the calculation. We probably don't need all those 38 rows. So let's talk a little bit more about the display. There is a dark gray bar that shows breaks between different prefixes. So when you see a group of prefixes in between two gray bars, those are all the same prefix. And here's an example. There's a prefix here with a routing history of 0, and its origin AS is 11164, so Internet2's I2PX network. Well, we're also originating currently 0-day-old route from 11537. And again, we're also originating the same route from 396955. So we're originating the same /48 from 3 different origin ASs. We have Internet Routing Registry objects. We have 3 different ones, each representing the different origin AS. And there are current ROAs that actually cover these and evaluate to valid. So those are all good. That looks good. Here's one where this prefix we've seen 562 days ago. There is not a route object for this. If you look at it, it's kind of an odd route. It's a /126. I'm guessing that may have not been intentional, but I probably don't need to include that in calculating the ROAs that are required, because that's not a route that we've seen in a long time, and it looks like a route we wouldn't normally produce. So I can uncheck that, and then that causes a recalculation. So if you remember before, it said there were 38 ROAs required to cover all these. Now we're down to 37 because I've removed that from the information used to determine the ROAs that are required. So here's a prefix, a /40, and there are 3 lines for the same /40, the 3 lines between or 3 rows between the dark gray bars. These were reallocated to the Great Plains network. I can click on the point of contacts and see the official technical contacts for that reassignment. And it doesn't look like we've seen the /40 as a route in 154 days. And so it could be possible that this is one we don't need to make a ROA for. And what I might do is I might take the contact information here and send an email saying, hey, this reallocation still exists in Aaron. We haven't seen a route for this in 6 months. Do you intend to use this in the future? And if so, we'll set a row up for it. So I'll go on. Here's /40 that we've allocated to PSC. Again, here's the technical contact information for that reassignment. But we don't see any routes in routing history for that. And the routing history goes back years. So these probably haven't been used or haven't been used in such a way that they've actually been propagated to the rest of the internet. Here is /48 that is, this is interesting. Okay, so this assignment, the /40, was given to SOX, and then you can see that this next prefix is indented, and that is telling you that this 48 is a part of the 40. And this 48 actually is in use. So we see a route that's 0 days old, and it has an origin 2637, and we probably want to create a ROA for that route. So we can move on to the next prefix. Here we've got, again, it's indented from the /40, so it's part of the SOX allocation. It has a different origin AS, so we saw a route for this 778 days ago. with a different origin AS. And this may be one where we contact SOCs and ask them, is this a route we might expect to see in the future or not? And decide whether we want to create a ROA for that or not. Let's say we contact them, they say no. So we can take that out of the ROAs that we make. So I can go through this whole thing and figure out what ROAs I should create, and use, since in the point of contact links, make it easy for me to identify who I need to notify or ask questions to. And there's a link that lets you copy the email address. So if there's a bunch of emails associated with one, you can, in one stroke, copy those email addresses and paste those into the to-line in your email. So these are all the planning information to create those ROAs, to let you select which rows you want to be in that calculation. Now, in this case, this Maria Virginia Tech /48 has been highlighted, and it also has a note at the origin AS that say may require additional ROAs. So when the origin AS is Radware's AS, the ROA planner highlights the fact that this is a DDoS scrubbing service, and it may require additional ROAs. And the information you need for the ROAs may not be available in this data. You may have to contact the regional network and find out what origin AS originates parts of this route during a DDoS incident. And you can click on Radware, and it gives you a little background into why that's a special case. A couple things. When you click on the badge that shows you that this is the route origin validation status of this prefix would be not found, you click on that and it takes you to the RouteNator checker, and you can find out, and you can get more information about that prefix and any covering ROAs.